What is going on? Welcome back. 3rd and 20 podcast, episode 42. My name is Frank Entwistle. If you're watching on YouTube, you can probably see that my co-host Steed is not here today. He's having some technical difficulties, so I'm going to be doing this one solo. But with that being said, let's get right into it. The first thing that I wanted to talk about was the NFC East. This is a funny division. This is a division that did not have a ton of success last year. They didn't have a single team that went over 500. It was a division that any one of those teams that made the playoffs last year, we really all thought that they had no chance of winning a game in the playoffs. No chance of really making a run. But we've seen this division. Cowboys just spent a whole lot of money signing Dak Prescott. The Giants just spent a ton of cash signing free agents like Kenny Galladay, Adoree Jackson, trying to improve that team to make a playoff push. The Washington football team signed Curtis Samuel, a relatively high-rated receiver from Carolina. I mean, then there's the Eagles. We don't really know what's going to happen with them. They look like an absolute dumpster fire from the outside, but this is a team that only a handful of years ago was a perennial playoff team, a team that won the Super Bowl. So I just kind of want to beg the question, what is this division, what is the state of this division? Are they going to be as bad as they were last year? Is it just going to be another race to 8, 9, 10 wins, and whoever gets there is going to be the team in the playoffs, and then they'll just be one and done? Or is one of these teams actually going to step up and be a team that can actually make a run at the Super Bowl and actually win a lot of games and be a threat in the NFC? Well, me and Steed, off air, we're just looking at Super Bowl odds, looking for the next Hooters bet. For those that may not know, we did last year, we did a Hooters bet where we put $20 on the Raiders to win the Super Bowl. Obviously, they didn't even make the playoffs, but they got off to a pretty good start last year. And the whole idea, the premise behind the bet was that we take a team that has at least plus 5,000, 6,000 odds at winning the Super Bowl and throw 10, $20 on it, and if we win, we'll throw a massive party at Hooters. So we were looking at Super Bowl odds for the next Hooters bet, the next Hooters team. Who's going to be the team that can take us to the promised land, the Hooters, and win us this cash? And there's a team that we thought, dang, there's some decent value there, and it's in this NFC East. And that team is a team that I kind of dissed their quarterback in a film analysis. And that's the New York Giants. I think the New York Giants are a team that they're really interesting looking at them from the outside. They're a team that their defense was way better than it's been previously in any other season. I mean, this is a defense that held Russell Wilson and the Seahawks to a touchdown, 2 touchdowns, under 15 points, I'm pretty sure, something like that. The defense that was really, it kept them in games every single week. You look at the Giants' schedule, basically every game was close, especially the games against the good teams, the playoff teams. The Rams, Seahawks, the Bears. Not saying the Bears have a great offense or anything. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers with the GOAT, Tom Brady. That was a one-score game. Held them under 25 points. And now you look at the offense. Offensive line last year was a group that I have seen that is just much better than any other Giants offensive line I've seen in recent memory. Obviously, aside from those teams where they were making Super Bowls and playoff runs just in recent times, in the past 3, 4, 5 years, this has been a group that's been under average for years. But at the end of last season, without Saquon Barkley, one of the best, if not the most talented running back in the league, is a team that could consistently run the football. Without their top guy, without their huge beast of a running back in Saquon Barkley, they were able to develop a run game. You know, they go out, they sign Kenny Galladay, that number 1 receiver, that alpha receiver that all the Giants fans have really been calling for. You have the offensive line. You have the receivers. You get the running back back. Maybe Daniel Jones puts it together and this team is able to make a run. I was saying it at the end of last season that if the Giants made the playoffs from this NFC East, if they were able to beat out the Washington football team and the Cowboys for that last playoff spot at the end of the season, they were easily the scariest team from that division. Now, I guess that's not really saying much looking at the division, but I really like where Joe Judge is taking this team. I really think that this NFC East Giants team, like, you got a winnable division. You have the talent on both sides of the ball. You just need to really make Daniel Jones comfortable in this offense enough to where you can put up that 24, 25 points a game that you need to win football games. You don't need to be the Chiefs. You don't need to be this crazy offense that's putting up 35 points a game to win games. You have a great defense, and you just look at that secondary. It is phenomenal. And adding Adoree Jackson. Adoree Jackson doesn't even have to play, and this secondary is still a top half of the league secondary in the NFL. Now you just add talent. They have so much talent on this roster, and the draft hasn't even happened yet. I personally think, they add one of the top pass rushers in the draft onto that defense. This is a possible top 5 defense. You just need Daniel Jones to finally start putting it together, to be the quarterback you drafted him to be. Maybe this team can make a run at things. And considering that we're getting plus 7,000 odds right now at them to win the Super Bowl, me and Steed, we've bought into the Giants. The Giants are the new Hooters bet. Let's go, G-Men. I wish Steed was here to give some insight, give some comments on the new Hooters bet. I'm excited for this team. I know I trashed him a little bit. I trashed Daniel Jones. He's a guy that I liked coming out of school, but just looking at the film last year, I was more than underwhelmed with what I saw. I was actually really disappointed in what I saw. But I believe in Jason Garrett. I thought Jason Garrett did a really good job tailoring the offense to Daniel Jones' strengths. You get that number 1 alpha receiver in Kenny Golladay that will take the pressure off Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton, to where they don't need to be these number 1 receivers. They can just play their role. Sterling Shepard can be that guy underneath, that little one-on-one matchup in the slot. Darius Slayton can be that deep threat where if you have no safety help, hey, Daniel Jones can rip that thing over the top. And then Kenny Golladay can just be that guy, be that alpha, that red zone threat that they need. So that Daniel Jones is throwing more than 11 touchdowns in a season. But I'm really excited for this Giants team. Now, I just kind of want to also talk about the other teams right now. Are the Eagles going to be as bad as they were last year? Man, it's just really hard to believe in the Eagles right now. You just look at everything that's going on. They just fired their coach. That their whole cap situation, they've had to cut a whole lot of players, and they can't add anyone. It really feels like this is a team that basically needs every single position. We don't really know if Jalen Hurts is a franchise quarterback or not. We have no idea. We saw a handful of games. The guy completed like 52% of his passes. I like Jalen Hurts. I think he's good, but you can't say that, hey, they got their quarterback. You have no idea. Their running attack was average at best last year. I mean, I think it was all right. They just didn't really like running the ball a whole lot. And Howie Roseman really hasn't drafted well these past 5 seasons. He's had a handful of good picks. So are the Eagles even going to be close to competing for the division? Because it's the NFC East, I feel like we can't count them out. Then you got the Cowboys. They just signed Dak Prescott to that huge deal. They're going to have to really nail this draft, which I feel like the Cowboys generally do. But that defense, man, that defense was terrible to begin last year. So are they going to be able to turn it around? Or, like, who knows? They need to add so much talent to that defensive line and secondary. Can they even do that in one draft? And then you got the Washington football team. You got Fitzmagic. You don't even know if that's a good thing or a bad thing with Fitzmagic. He's so... One game, he looks like he's a great quarterback, and then the next game, it's like, well, shit, any other quarterback in the league would probably have a better game. But it just really feels like this division, the Giants, have a huge opportunity. That they're a team, they have everything they need, aside from possibly the quarterback. And even someone who said, like, I'd look for a quarterback possibly in the draft. I mean, if someone like a Justin Fields, I'm really high on Kellen Mond, but I don't think Kellen Mond is the kind of guy they need to step in and start. Even someone like me who's really high on him. But if there is that quarterback, maybe even a Mac Jones, like, do you pull the trigger and just say, fuck it, we're a quarterback away possibly, and we believe in this guy? I don't think they'll do it. I think that Dave Gettleman wants the pass rusher, but it's something you have to ponder, and it really feels like if this team had that number one legit quarterback, they'd really make a run at things and be a heavy favorite in this division. And the NFC is pretty open. We all know that the Bucs are going to be a good team again. The Saints, we have no idea what's going to happen. They've been a powerhouse in the NFC for years. It really feels like the NFC... Yeah, the Bucs are probably a shoo-in for the playoffs, but the Giants almost beat the Bucs. The Giants could take out the Bucs. It's not like the Bucs were a crazy, consistent team. The Packers are good, but we've seen what happens with the Packers in the playoffs when they go up against a team that has as much talent as they do. I'm not trying to say the Giants are a favorite by any stretch of the imagination. Plus 7,000 for the Super Bowl. It's a little bit crazy. All right. But Giants, they're our new Super Bowl bet, the new Hooters bet. Pretty excited about them. I'm hoping that they can do something. But let's get into the next segment here. This is a segment I've wanted to do for a while. I have been watching a ton of tape on these rookie running backs. So I figured, let's get into the running back rankings. Rookie running back rankings. I don't see a ton changing in these rankings come draft time, after the draft. Maybe for spots like 5 to 10, there could be some movement depending on who gets picked where. And I haven't fully finished scouting the running backs. I think I've scouted 15 or 16. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see the exact number in a second. But for the top guys, that order is pretty set for me. So let's, without further ado, let's get right into this. And if you listen to the Dynasty podcast, the 3rd and 20 Dynasty podcast, you will know that I am very high on Javonte Williams. Very, very, very high on Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams, for me, is my easy RB1 this year. There really isn't much of a debate. He's the running back out of North Carolina. There's actually 2 very good prospects out of North Carolina. And I have him currently graded with an NFL draft value of a late first, early second round pick. And the main reason for that is this guy is a beast. He is incredibly hard to bring down. So I did some tracking. Let's see if this can show up here. Let's zoom out a smidge. Bang. So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see I have 15 running backs tracked. I'm going to be adding more to this, and I'll release this on the website and the Twitter. If you follow us on Twitter at 3rd and 20 _. And you'll see here, FMT table, this is forced missed tackles. And what I define as a forced missed tackle is, obviously a broken tackle, any sort of juke, what I deemed as someone making a defender miss, right? And I tried to be as strict as possible because a lot of these guys, there are so many ambiguous types of forced missed tackles. So I had a couple of rules like, okay, if you were just kind of going around a blocker and using a block to kind of evade a tackle, I did not count that as a forced missed tackle. It had to be relatively clear, okay, you made a move, you used speed, a stiff arm, whatever, to make a defender miss. You were the reason that tackle was missed. And as you can see on the screen here, Javonte Williams' forced missed tackle rate pretty much blows everyone else out of the water. The only ones that are relatively close are Travis Etienne, the Clemson running back, and Michael Carter, his teammate. And he's the only running back that has over a 0.5 forced missed tackle rate, which basically means every carry he's got a 50% chance, over a 50% chance of breaking a tackle, of forcing a missed tackle. And I was relatively lenient on Javonte Williams as well because there were so many games. You watch the NC State game, you could have given him 20 forced missed tackles. He's just breaking so many, making so many guys miss. It's absolutely absurd. I really haven't seen many running backs like it. Like, I felt like I was watching a Nick Chubb again, a guy that I just absolutely loved coming out. I adored coming out. And that's Javonte Williams for me. Javonte Williams, I've definitely been higher on him. To me, I have him in that very low-end Tier 1 of running backs or very high-end Tier 2. He would have been right up there with Jonathan Taylor for me last year. I was a guy that was really high on Jonathan Taylor in Dynasty Leagues. So, if we want to rank running backs from this year and last year, Javonte Williams would be right up there, 1 or 2 with Jonathan Taylor, in terms of combining this year and last year's running backs. So if you hear people say, oh, well, this running back class is nowhere near as good as the last one, they're just being overhyped, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I don't think that you should take anything away from Javonte Williams and give him a fair shake. I understand that this running back class is not as great as the running back class last year, but damn, Javonte Williams, for me, he checks every box. So let's get into the tape a little bit on Javonte Williams. First thing, just look at this run. This run is absolutely absurd. The guy breaks like 90 tackles on this run. Holy, dude, do you see that? For those listening, he's just trucking people. Making 80 guys miss, using every move in the book. Miami was the 10th ranked team in the country at the time. It's not like this is Joe Schmo State. This is an actual, I'm not going to come out here and say that Miami's defense is necessarily Alabama or anything, but these are actual players. These are good players. These are Division I athletes, and he's making them look like they're high schoolers. So for me, Javonte Williams has no major weakness. There are a couple things that you can nitpick at, and I'll get into a couple of those, but I really feel like he's the total package of a running back. And the other thing I really like about Javonte Williams, I like this about all these UNC kids, is, man, they play hard. So here's Javonte Williams. He's on the left side of the quarterback, Sam Howell. And look at the effort on this block. Lead blocking for his teammate, Michael Carter. I don't know what it is with these UNC kids. I tweeted out a little video on our Instagram. And there must be, whether it's the coaching, the recruiting, maybe there's something in the water. These UNC kids just play hard. And they really seem to want to block for each other. And it's funny because the running backs, you see it out of. The receivers, it's like these are positions notorious for guys, oh, well, if they're not getting the ball, they're a little lazy. Not these UNC kids. It's almost like they want to block. They really like it. They take pride in it. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the prospects, maybe it's the coaching, but I freaking love it. I love these guys. I want every UNC prospect. I like them all. So, like I said, I'd get into the weakness. I think my major weakness for Javonte Williams, I do question his lateral quickness. I have some questions about his overall speed. I'm not really a huge guy into the testing, but for the running back position, if you are not very athletic, it is tough to be a high-end running back. So I would like to see what his numbers are at the pro day, his 3-cone, his 20-yard split, and his 40 time, to see if he matches up with other good running backs that I've graded from the past. I don't need him to be a 4.45 runner, but I really do not want to see him running a 4.7, right? And especially, like, I'll show you the example of why I question his lateral quickness. So he's going to make this little move, going backwards slightly. It's a good move, right? His right tackle's getting driven into him. But the D-end is able to get hands on him. He has to make a miss. He's able to almost reroute Javonte Williams. And this is something that it's a little annoying. I'm a little skeptical of this because in the NFL, not only is that D-end going to be better, you're not going to be able to break as many tackles. Even a guy like Javonte Williams, who's a tackle-breaking machine, he's able to break a bunch of tackles and get back to the line of scrimmage, but you just have to question, okay, a truly good running back would probably be able to get around that defensive end for the most part unscathed. Maybe he'd have to break an arm tackle, but he would not get completely rerouted by this defensive end if he had better lateral quickness. And I said, especially on runs behind the line of scrimmage, I question his lateral quickness. Once he gets going, he's fine. He's quick enough. So my pro comparison for Javonte Williams is a more talented Chris Carson. I haven't really touched on him in the receiving game. I think he's a fine receiver. He's nothing special necessarily, but he's competent. He can pass block. He can catch. He's got some pretty decent routes. That's why I comped him to Chris Carson. He's kind of this overall do-it-all back that has a very punishing running style, and they break a lot of tackles. They force a lot of guys to miss them, and that's exactly what I like in my running backs. So Javonte Williams, for me, he's in that tier 1 of running backs, especially in this class, and a decent bit above the other running backs. So we'll get into my number 2 running back, and that's Najee Harris, the running back from Alabama. And I must say, the gap between Najee Harris and Travis Etienne is razor thin. And if I'm playing Dynasty Fantasy Football, the landing spot and the situation they go to and where they get drafted will probably sway my opinion on these guys slightly, because I really struggled picking which one I liked more, but I ended up going with Najee Harris, the running back from Alabama. And I have like an early to mid second round grade on Najee Harris. I think the biggest pro for Najee Harris is his receiving ability. You look at Najee Harris, and everyone knows he's a good receiver, but everyone kind of just thinks, oh yeah, well, he's okay. He's nothing special necessarily. That is false. That is very false. This guy is an extremely talented receiver, and that is the reason I have him over Travis Etienne, even though Travis Etienne is seen as more of the receiving back. The reason is, and you look at this play, you've probably seen it against LSU. He's able to moss people. If you have him in one-on-one coverage, he is a threat vertically down the field. You do not see that in running backs a whole lot. You have him one-on-one with a linebacker. They run him on a wheel route. It's a 50-50 ball. That is scary for a guy his size. It is very scary. And I think more so than ever, offensive coordinators want to use their running backs in the receiving game as matchup hazards. If you have them one-on-one with a linebacker, you want them to be more than just get open on an angle route or running like a quick out or a quick slant or something. Especially at the college game, which I think is now transitioning more into the NFL, you want your running backs to be as much of a threat in the receiving game as possible. And if they're a threat vertically, that's just the cherry on top. And Najee Harris is exactly that. I mean, the other things that jump off the screen are his athletic abilities is unreal. You know, he's hurdling guys all the time. He has great contact balance. He's got good vision. He's pro-ready. Now, you might be asking, well, then why the hell is he your number 2 running back? Well, there are a couple major cons that I have, just that put him, so it's just skepticism, right? More so than the skepticism I have with Javonte Williams, right? So a lot of people say that Najee Harris's vision is good, and it is good. I'm not saying it's bad. But a lot of people think that, okay, well, in a zone running scheme, he'd be great. But I have some questions about that, and here's an example here. So this is a run against Auburn that I looked at, and I'd actually seen on Twitter a lot of people saying, oh, well, this is great vision on this cutback from Najee Harris, and I wanted to get into it because what was confusing to me is that if it was a true inside zone run, why the hell did the center not step with the rest of the offensive line? And what I learned after watching a lot of coaching classes, this is a duo run concept, where you're trying to get these 2 interior double teams that work to the linebackers. And what Najee Harris wants to do is he's reading the flow of these 2 linebackers. If they spill way over the top, then there's a design cutback. If they're chilling where they're at, I mean, you're just running this thing right up the A-gap. And then vice versa. If they want to run it, you know, try and clog this A-gap, you're bouncing it. It's a pretty simple read. So he's reading these linebackers. And you'll see that there's just a huge cutback lane. This middle linebacker spills over, and there's an easy cutback lane. And Najee Harris hits it, easy touchdown. And you might be saying, well, how the hell is that a con? That's a great read. That's a great look. Well, I did some more research, and Najee Harris really likes this duo concept, not zone. It's actually a gap concept. It's more of a man-blocking scheme. Here's an example against LSU in 2019. It's the same thing. You see those linebackers flow way over the top, so you hit the natural cutback. He made a living off of this play for Alabama. I think the one thing that I'm scared of, though, is that people see this and equate this to vision in a zone blocking scheme, which it is not. The zone blocking, you know, outside zone, I think Najee Harris kind of struggles a little bit on, which is why I'm scared. You know, inside zone and outside zone, he has a tendency at times to just stop his feet, and I think that this is why people initially comped him to Derrick Henry, because they both struggle with the same issue. The whole battle with Najee Harris and Derrick Henry is to get them to stop their feet on these zone run concepts. Because when they stop their feet, their vertical quickness is not very good, and you're able to rally to the tackle, right? But if you allow them to get going downfield with some momentum, well, then it's game over. You know, these guys, D-back can't tackle them. So here's an example here of what I'm a little skeptical at. You're going to see he stops his feet a little bit, and then you're able to rally. And I felt like I saw a little bit too much of this. Now, it is nitpicky, and I understand my pro comp for Najee Harris is not Derrick Henry. But that doesn't mean you can't break down similarities and differences between the 2 running backs. And you have a very similar philosophy of stopping them. So if you're looking to use Najee Harris in this Derrick Henry role in a primarily zone blocking scheme, right, where you're running 50% of your runs are outside zone, the next 30% of the runs are inside zone. Well, the big difference between Derrick Henry and Najee Harris is that Derrick Henry consistently is at the top of the league in broken tackles. Before this 2,000-yard season, Derrick Henry, from 2017 to 2019, led the league in forced missed tackles. Well, here's the problem. We go back to my forced missed tackle table. Let's see where he's at. Najee Harris. Forced missed tackles per touch, 0.36. Forced missed tackles per run, 0.29. That is lower than Rhamondre Stevenson, the running back out of Oklahoma. Now, if you want to question my tracking, which, in all right, you can, PFF tracked Najee Harris's forced missed tackle rate or broken tackle rate, whatever they call it, from his first 3 years at school And it was 0.294 or something along the lines. It was either 0.298 or 0.298, somewhere around there. 0.28, 0.29, 0.3. It was eerily similar. I actually think I have it somewhere around here. Let's see. Najee Harris. No, I don't have it written down. That's unfortunate. But you can look it up online. It's super, super similar from his first 3 years. And that is a little scary if you want to use him in that same role as Derrick Henry. Now, you know, the receiving game, I think, is the big thing that separates the two. And is the reason why I haven't knocked Najee Harris down a whole lot is that he's super athletic. He's just such a mismatch in the receiving game. And you know, I just think back to that Kevin Stefanski offense that I think a lot of teams are going to want to copy, where you have a bunch of tight ends, and if you don't like the look, you can split it out 5 wide. Defense usually has to go to some sort of base defense because they've completely changed the formation in the blink of an eye. And if you have Najee Harris one-on-one with a linebacker, that is a great matchup for any offense, even in the NFL. And that's where I really think Najee Harris can get this competitive advantage. So, just to reiterate, the cons for Najee Harris, he doesn't break as many tackles as people think. He drags defenders for extra yards. He breaks a lot of tackles from defensive backs when he gets going. But if you really look into it, and I suggest you to go back to these same YouTube videos I watched, and you can track yourself how many tackles he legitimately breaks. Not where he drags a guy for 4 yards, where he cleanly breaks a tackle. It's not as many as you think. Especially when you compare him to these other top running backs. You know, I don't think he's progressed a ton from last season, which is a slight issue for me. And then the last thing, he's just old, which that's where the whole picture starts to come together, and that's why I put him at 2, is that, okay, he's old. I haven't seen him progress a ton. I'm kind of scared that I'm getting a finished product for the most part. Which, comparing him to Javonte Williams, I feel like Javonte Williams, that ceiling is just higher. And while Najee Harris might be better today, within even one training camp, I feel like I might be able to get Javonte Williams to a level higher than Najee Harris. But that's just my opinion. Let's get into the third ranked running back, and that's Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne, once again, it is very close between him and Najee Harris. And if you play a lot of Dynasty Fantasy Football, right now at Travis Etienne's ADP, I think he's actually a really good buy. He's going, it seems like, the late first round. Man, that is tremendous value, especially when you compare him to Najee Harris, where Najee Harris is going very early in the first round. I have them very similarly rated. Now, obviously, when the draft comes around, this is all going to change. But if you're drafting now, there is a ton of value with Travis Etienne. It is razor thin, the margin between the two of them, in my opinion. I have Travis Etienne graded, once again, as an early to mid second round prospect. His pros, his tackle breaking. If you were on YouTube and you saw my forced missed tackle table, you will see, and I mentioned earlier, that Travis Etienne is second overall in forced missed tackles per touch. He is second overall in forced missed tackles per run. The guy is just tough to bring down. He's fast. He's explosive. He's quick. He's dangerous in space. He's a good receiver. He's definitely gotten better as a receiver at Clemson. And I really want to go over this quickness because I think that his quickness is very good. I do not think it's at an elite NFL level, though. Well, we get to see an example here against Virginia. So you're going to see, this is the exact type of run that Travis Etienne wants. He wants a crease that opens up quickly where he can get downfield quickly with his shoulders square to the end zone. Because when that happens, he is a load to bring down. When he has his shoulders square driving down the field towards the end zone, it is very tough to bring him down. And that's where he gets a majority of his forced missed and broken tackles, is in that exact scenario. You could see on that play that I just showed, if you're watching on YouTube, he drags a linebacker for probably 10, 11, 15 yards from the initial contact. And it doesn't just stop there. Here's a run. You're going to see him initially, the run is designed for the left. He's going to cut it back to the right. And there are a whole lot of running backs that would, you have this unblocked edge defender. This is why this play is designed to go to the left, because you have an unblocked player, so you're trying to create a small numbers advantage for your offensive line. Well, Travis Etienne is so freaking good that any other running back, this linebacker, this unblocked edge contained defender, would tackle the running back for a minimal gain, if any. Well, Travis Etienne is so explosive and so quick that he's able to turn that into a 9-8 yard run. Just this, look how quickly he hits this cutback, bang, down the field. And that may look relatively pedestrian, but man, that is manufacturing yardage. He just manufactured 6-7 yards compared to an average running back. It is truly, truly incredible how explosive he is. His vertical quickness is very good. I like to differentiate horizontal and vertical quickness. There are some backs that are good from a start and stop going from sideways, and sometimes they're better going forward. Travis Etienne is definitely quicker going forward than he is sideways from a standstill position. I think most people are. Most running backs are. But the big cons I have with Travis Etienne is that he's not a very developed runner at all. You have a lot of runs where he'll get 0 yards, 1 yard, 0 yards, 1 yard, and then bang, he'll rip off 25 yard, 40 yards, and then he'll go back 1 yard, 2 yards, 1 yard, 4 yards. And I think that's because he's just not a very developed runner. And part of that, my biggest thing, is his vision is average at best. And he doesn't manage his space well and attack defenders very well. But this is something he could definitely improve on with good coaching, which is why, for Travis Etienne, I think landing spot does matter for me. Because if he can go to a team that I truly believe can develop him as a runner, he could be extremely dangerous. He could easily be the best running back in this class. So we're going to see an example here, right? This is something that Clemson loved to do, and it really takes advantage of Travis Etienne's skill set. You could see that Trevor Lawrence would initially roll out to the left as if they're just going for a rollout pass, but then hand the ball off to Travis Etienne going in the opposite direction, almost forcing Travis Etienne to use that explosiveness going against the grain. Very clever from this offensive coaching staff to take advantage of a player's strengths like this. And what you're going to see, Travis Etienne makes a smart decision. He's going to see that the linebackers and the defensive line don't really flow with the rollout of Trevor Lawrence. And there's a lot of space to Travis Etienne's left, where you would think these linebackers would be flowing. Now, my problem with this run is that Travis Etienne doesn't really do a good job of attacking these defenders and managing this space. You're going to see he kind of just tries to part the Red Sea of these linebackers, or of this corner and linebacker, which is not a good decision. I want to see him force one of these players to really make a tackle with bad leverage. Attack one of these guys and force them to make a somewhat awkward tackle, because if you try to part the sea, they both have a better leverage on their tackle than Travis Etienne does. And he's not taking advantage of his squared shoulder contact. He breaks so many tackles when his shoulders are square to the defender. But when he just tries to rely on speed, that's where I get very skeptical with him as a runner. So let me play it out here. He just kind of expects to beat them with speed. He doesn't expect this linebacker to really catch him. He doesn't really make a great move. So right here, Travis Etienne, if he was a very developed runner to me, has a decision to make. You either try to cut this back against the grain and force this linebacker to miss, or right here, you bounce it and try to take on this D-back. I really don't like how he just kind of made a decision in the middle of the two and just kind of let himself be tackled. Because this is a play, you do not get this amount of space in the NFL too often. You know, on plenty, you just don't. The players are faster. The space gets eaten up way quicker. So you have to be very good at picking and choosing your battles as a running back. And this is what I want to see Travis Etienne improve on. And this is why I have him as my number 3 back right now, is that if he cannot improve on this, he will not be good. At least, not good. He won't be great, though. He won't be one of these top running backs in the league, which he has the potential of being and people are expecting of him. So he's an inconsistent runner. He's not very great at managing his space and attacking a defender's leverage. His vision could be definitely better, and he hasn't progressed a ton as a pure runner. And here's another example of Travis Etienne attacking defenders' leverage. So right here, you could see, this is a great example of his this cut he can do. It's insane. Look how quickly he gets upfield. But here, he sees that this defensive lineman is disengaging his blocker. He needs to attack outside. The whole defense, right, because Travis Etienne is so quick, most of the defense is still flowing to Travis Etienne's left, the defense's right, when he cuts this back. I want him to get this run up the alley. Don't try to just go straight up the field. See where their leverage is. This linebacker, right, this safety, he's still pointing to the right because he hasn't fully reacted to Travis Etienne's incredibly quick cut back across the field. He just needs to get up the alley, break this arm tackle, and he could be gone. This is very nitpicky, but when you're comparing these top 3 running backs, you almost have to be nitpicky. So that's my pro comp for Travis Etienne is Felix Jones. That's not saying I'm thinking that Travis Etienne is going to be a bust. It's just the way that they run. They're both speedsters that like contact with their shoulders squared. That's why I chose Felix Jones. It's not the best pro comp. I understand that. So my number 4 running back, and I actually just recently changed this, is Kenneth Gainwell. Initially, it was Michael Carter. If you watched our video on the Dynasty podcast where we did our consensus running back rankings, it was Michael Carter for me. But I went back while putting this video together, this segment together for my running backs, and man, I forgot how much I loved Kenneth Gainwell a little bit. You talk about a guy that just plays bigger than he is. Well, that's Kenneth Gainwell. You're going to see off the edge here if you're watching on the tube. This is Micah Parsons coming off the edge. Look at Kenneth Gainwell. He puts him on his ass. He destroys him. But the common knock on him is he's too small. He's not going to be able to be a running back in the NFL. He's too small. It's one of the most talented, that's the consensus most talented linebacker in the draft. What are the other pros for Kenneth Gainwell? He's the best receiving back in the class. 100%. If he wasn't a running back, I think he'd have a decent shot as a late round receiver. He plays way bigger than he is. And he's just absolutely electric with the ball in his hands. You know, his forced missed tackle rate isn't incredibly high, and he needs to get more consistent as a runner, but my God, he's electric. So here's this play against Tulane. You'll see this if you watch Kenneth Gainwell. The dude does not go down. There are so many times where it takes multiple guys to drag him down. He never gives up on the play. It takes 4 or 5 guys to tackle him. It's exactly what you want as a running back, especially if you're a smaller running back, playing bigger than you are. All these guys are bigger than him. The other thing I like about Kenneth Gainwell is he a lot of the times is a very good pad level going through the hole. You're going to see on this run here against SMU, towards the goal line, 2nd and 10. Look at his shoulders. If this safety were to contact him and wasn't getting blocked, he would stand this guy straight up and have a chance at breaking the tackle. He gets into the end zone for a touchdown. There's a holding penalty, but regardless, very good pad level going through the hole. It's what you really like to see. And then lastly, here's a clip of him just being Kenneth Gainwell in space. Puts a guy to the floor. Look. Puts a linebacker or a safety to the floor on that juke move. Absolutely electric with the ball. Very shifty. Now my cons, okay, the obvious one that I was making fun of people for saying before, he is undersized. And I think that doesn't really affect him as much as a runner, but it affects him a lot in pass pro. He needs to get better at pass pro. He needs to. His ball security is also not very good. I'm pretty sure of the 15 or 16 running backs I graded, I'm pretty sure he has the lowest ball security grade. Or second lowest. He's definitely up there. And the last thing, which is almost part of the positive of Kenneth Gainwell, is that he just, a lot of the times, tries to do too much. You'll see he'll start going backwards, trying to make plays, go way across the field, and it's one of those things that you like when it works, but you really hate it when it doesn't work, because there will be plays where he will lose 9 yards. 9 yards. He'll be like 4 yards down the field, and it'll end up in a 9-yard loss. And it's especially at the NFL, you can't get away with that kind of stuff. The guys are just too fast, they're too disciplined, they're too good for you to do too much of that bull crap and really get away with it. I don't mind it at times, but it's just sometimes it's too much from him. It's way too much. I think the last positive is he was a quarterback in high school, so he's very good with the ball in his hands, like handling the football. And you'll see Memphis did a whole lot of direct snaps with Kenneth Gainwell in Wildcats to try and get that extra blocker in the run game. And because he was a quarterback, he can take the snaps pretty reliably. He might be able to throw. So that is a slightly added benefit. It probably won't change his draft stock with anything, but you never know, right? It's better than not being able to handle the football. So my pro comp for Kenneth Gainwell is Tiki Barber. I feel like they're both that lightning back, right? Even if you don't think that Kenneth Gainwell could be the main back in an offense, he could easily be that change of pace lightning back that is even more talented than the lightning backs of today, like the Tariq Cohens and those kinds of players. Like I could easily see him being more of an Austin Eckler than a Tariq Cohen. So my fifth running back, which was fourth coming in, is Michael Carter. Michael Carter and Kenneth Gainwell, I love these guys because they just play bigger than they are, and they've got so much heart. And I mentioned it with the UNC guys and their blocking. Well, here's Michael Carter, lead blocking. It's nothing crazy, but I just love the intensity and the effort, and you see it time and time again. The other thing with Michael Carter, he's a much better runner than people give him credit for his size. It's a very nuanced run here that I'm showing on the screen. We're going to see. He's going to initially act like he's cutting this to the right, which gets both of these linebackers flowing to their left, Michael Carter's right, which opens up a ton of space on a cutback back to left. You see this linebacker here flowing to the left, to his left, Michael Carter's right. Michael Carter cuts back against the grain, and that gives him favorable leverage to break the tackle and break this one loose. Very nuanced runner. The other thing with Michael Carter, he's got good pad level, right? Like, he's got that really good balance and center of gravity. It makes it tough to bring him down a lot of the times, especially when he gets going. I just think he's a very underrated runner, right? Just that whole center of gravity in his balance, it's very good. It's very good. And the last clip I want to show, if you're watching on the tube, is look at this. Answer me this. You see, there are 4 guys here. 1, 2, 3, 4. How the hell does he break this one through? Just look at this. That's sometimes the thing with really good running backs is that you just kind of look at the tape and you're like, you pause right before they're about to make their move and you just kind of question yourself, what are they going to do? What are they thinking? Because they're doing this in real time, split-second decisions. And when you see guys that are just always making the correct decision, you just have to just give them credit and just be like, wow, that is just truly incredible that they're able to get through some of these situations and scenarios and create good leverage for them. And Michael Carter and Javonte Williams both do that. Now, I think the big problem I have with Michael Carter, and it's the same problem I have with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, is I'm not really a huge fan of them running in between the guards. Not in between the tackles, in between the guards. Inside zone, that duo run that we saw from Najee Harris. You know, if it's 3rd and 1, give me a yard. 3rd and 3, give me a couple yards. He struggles, and especially so if he's going to go to a team like the Cardinals, who I'm going to get into an analysis very quickly of, and your interior line is not very good, he's going to struggle. Because he's just not very good at dealing with contact at or behind the line of scrimmage. This happens way too much on film for me to really, really believe in him. I think he's a good runner, and I wouldn't necessarily avoid him as a prospect, but it's definitely something to be concerned with because we've seen how it's been plaguing Clyde Edwards-Helaire a little bit. That he hasn't been able to be that consistent runner, like in between the tackles. My number 6 running back is Trey Sermon. That's it for the clips. I'll kind of race through these running backs because the segment's going a little long. Trey Sermon, I have a late 2nd to mid 4th round grade on. Very variance grade, but that's mainly because he just was super inconsistent this season. You know, you look at him some games, like that Northwestern game, right? And he looks insane. And then you look at him against Indiana, and you're like, well, geez. Or no, not in Indiana, Nebraska. And you're like, well, this guy's trash. And he's a jag. Pros for Trey Sermon, for me, he's very physical runner. He's athletic. He's got good vision. He's versatile. I liked what I saw in the passing game from Trey Sermon. I think the big cons, and this is why like it's tough for me to really believe in him. He's just super inconsistent. He's a raw runner. Like I don't really think a lot of his tackle breaking moves, like his stiff arm or spin move, or even his truck, like he doesn't have a move that he can truly rely on. I feel like they're all average or under average. So I would like to see him develop a couple of moves as a runner that he can rely on at the next level because I feel like he's going to need to. And my pro comp for him is Jamal Williams. Both physical runners. I do think he's a better pass catcher than Jamal Williams, though. My number 7 running back is Chuba Hubbard, the Oklahoma State running back. I have a mid-late 3rd to mid-4th round grade on him. This guy's a speed back. He's got a great jump cut. He had good production. I think he has pretty good vision. I think he has an elite level jump cut. And he's able to get skinny through the hole a lot of the time. I think the problem is that that's really all he's got. He's very one-dimensional runner. He doesn't have great contact balance. He's not great at breaking tackles with contact. His ball security is pretty poor. And like I said before, he's one-dimensional. He's not very versatile. And he's going to need to work on that. I do think he has a high ceiling. It's just, I think that Chuba Hubbard is a guy that needs some development to really be one of those top backs. My 8th back is Rhamondre Stevenson. I was pleasantly surprised with what I saw with Rhamondre Stevenson. This is a big back, but my biggest pro for him, and it was my biggest pro for Jay Ajayi back in the day and why I really liked him, he is really quick and got good feet for a big guy. It is really, really fun to watch. You know, when he gets to the 2nd level, he is tough to bring down, and he is like juking out deep backs. He's trucking them. When he gets to the 2nd level, he breaks a ton of tackles. He has a higher force missed tackle rate than Najee Harris. Granted, he is not playing in the SEC, so. But his footwork, his quickness, contact balance, tackle breaking, very, very good for Rhamondre Stevenson. I was very pleasantly surprised, and even though he didn't test very well, and that might hurt his draft stock, I'm not going to sleep on this guy. My cons for him, he does not have that second gear. He will get caught from behind. His vision needs improvement, and he's very pedestrian in the receiving game right now. Similar to what Jay Ajayi was, that might be an issue that hinders him his entire career. The fact that he's just going to be a pass blocker if he's on the field in a passing down. So my pro comp for him is Jay Ajayi, unsurprisingly. My ninth back, Khalil Herbert. I have him as like that late third to mid fourth. For me, his draft stock will probably depend on how he tests. I felt like I really questioned my athleticism of him on tape. My pros for Khalil Herbert, his vision, patient runner. That's the first thing you'll notice if you watch Khalil Herbert. Extremely patient runner. And he's got good ball security. He seems like a very reliable running back and extremely good for a zone scheme, a zone team. And yeah, the cons, athletic ability. I just haven't seen it on tape. I want to see it somewhere. His receiving game, he didn't really do too much. He's going to have to develop there. And he didn't really show me too much power behind his runs. He wasn't a very physical runner, which I think he 100% needs to improve on if he wants to be an actual running back at the next level. Get consistent, meaningful playing time. So my pro comp for him is not a very good one. It's like a less athletic DeAndre Swift with way worse receiving ability. Don't take that pro comp too seriously. And then my 10th running back, my 10th spot, I have Kylin Hill right there. You could put Jamar Jefferson or Jarrett Patterson there. I probably think that when I get through, I have like another 16 running backs to watch. When I get through those guys, one of them will probably take this 10 spot. But for now, it's Kylin Hill. Kylin Hill to me is a very high floor but really low ceiling. He's a guy that Mississippi State completely changed the scheme to an air raid scheme, and his role in the offense was completely changed. But I mean, he took it really well, and he looked very good as a pass catcher. He's a powerful runner. There really isn't a whole lot Kylin Hill can't do. It's just there also really isn't anything I think that Kylin Hill really excels at as well, which is the main problem I have with him. But with that being said, that's my top 10 running backs. I really had a great time watching the running backs this year. I understand this class isn't as good as last year, but I still think there are some pretty damn good running backs, and if you're a Dynasty Fantasy Football player, there's still going to be some good picks. Now, let's get into the last segment of the day. I'm going to hurry up this one a little bit, and that's Arizona Cardinals analysis. This is a team that I watched a handful of times, but I really wanted to get into and kind of dive into because they're a really interesting team. And the first thing I noticed about the Cardinals, which I don't know if this is the public consensus or anything, it's something I thought not watching a ton of Cardinals games. This is not an offensive football team. This is a defensive-led football team. The defense was the reason this team was 500, not their offense, which is just kind of surprising because the whole talk around this team was Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, their offense, Cliff Kingsbury, offensive coach. But their defense was very good, and it kept them in a lot of ball games. Whereas their offense was extremely inconsistent. So I'm going to go into some of the problems I have with their offense and what kind of the outlook I have for the Cardinals. The first main problem is their running game for me. And it starts with these three interior guys. Their guards and their center. They kind of get bullied. You're going to see Kinlaw just destroy this offensive line. Here, let me get back here. It's just too easy. Look at that move. Just completely torches the center. And then you got nowhere to... This would have been a great run if you just block up Kinlaw. And this happens time and time and time and time again. Missed blocks. Running back misses the hole. Just the running game in general is so inconsistent, it hurts to watch. It really does. You're going to see here, this is a very egregious example I saw on tape. So Justin Pugh, I believe that's his name, he was the former Giant, is going to do a cross chop, it's called, onto a tackle, onto the D tackle, and then work to a linebacker. And the center, he's got a tough block against this nose, right? And then Kenyon Drake, we're going straight up the gut, right? Now we got two problems. The first problem is that this is probably the weakest cross chop I've ever seen. He just kind of taps him and then misses the linebacker. The other thing is our center's getting two gapped. And then we get no yards. And it's just, my goodness, this is terrible. I hope they should have got chewed out on tape, because this is what a cross chop is supposed to look like from a coach's tape. This is Trent Williams. You know, actually, bang! Club him. Bang! Not touch him. You didn't move him. This is wasted movement from Pugh. You might as well just go straight to the linebacker if you're just going to patty cake him. Terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. And the other thing is that the running backs weren't very good either. The times where there was some blocks, you know, the tight ends couldn't block, the running backs were making poor decisions. It was just a freaking clown fiesta. You're going to see it's just a split zone run. Our tight end is supposed to seal the edge, which I don't know what the hell he's doing, because he just does not. And then Kenyon Drake, he sees there's a huge cutback lane here. Just hit the cutback lane. He just goes into this pile of crap. This is 3rd and 1. We can't even get a yard when there's a huge hole. This is not an insanely difficult running concept. He's just pigeonholing himself. And man, as a Cardinals fan, it must have been infuriating to watch. So yeah, that's the first problem, is that our run game was bad. It was, for the most part, carried by Kyler Murray. And the other thing is that the extensions of the run game were not just as bad, but also bad. Our screen game was really bad for the Cardinals. The only time the screens were really ever working is DeAndre Hopkins just kind of balling out. And even then, it's like the receivers were not great at blocking. I'm looking mainly at Andy Isabella and Keyshawn Johnson. Larry Fitz was relatively good, but the tight ends weren't great at blocking either. And it was just hard to watch these 1st and 2nd downs from this team, because they just couldn't get ahead of the chains. They could not get ahead of the chains to save their lives. And then it happened time and time and time again that they would get behind the chains with 3rd and longs. And then on top of that, the Cardinals led the league in penalties per game, so the times that they were able to actually get ahead of the chains, it was negated by penalties. So this team was living on 3rd and longs. They were 23rd in the league on average 3rd down distance at 6.9 yards per 3rd down. It's a 3rd and medium plus basically every 3rd down. And they basically asked Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins, hey, win us games. Be the offense. Make plays. And it worked to a certain extent. But at the same time, this was an offense that was 2nd in the league in interceptions on 3rd down. And this is a large reason why. You kind of just asked Kyler Murray half the time, bail us out. You know, just make a play happen. And there were plenty of times he did, but there were also plenty of times where it would result in an interception. Or, you know, a throwaway. And that just can't happen. It cannot happen. There was too many mistakes, too much poor execution from this offense early in downs that would get him behind the chains. And then, you know, you're just basically forcing Kyler Murray, hey, just go win us the football game. You know, and just in general, I felt like the scheme, a lot of the plays was not very good from Cliff Kingsbury. It was very inconsistent. You're going to see a red zone play here where they're blocking 7 against this Washington football team pass rush. But if you're going to notice, Chase Young's not even on the field, first off. So I don't think you should be terribly scared in the red zone. Second off, you got the most, if not one of the most, dynamic quarterbacks in terms of evading rushers. So what's going to happen here is you only have 3 receivers. Every single receiver on this play is going to be double teamed. Every single receiver. What the hell do you want Kyler Murray to do? What the hell do you want him to do? And it just ends up being a waste of a play. This happens way too much. It happens way too much for this team to be one of the elite offenses that they have the talent to be, right? So then there are the plays that Cliff Kingsbury actually does well and does scheme people up. It's not like Cliff Kingsbury is an awful coach. I'm just kind of pointing out the things I didn't like about his scheme. Mainly the run and screen game, the short game that would put him behind the sticks. But then you'd have the plays where Cliff Kingsbury dials up perfect plays. And then Kyler Murray is the one that didn't make the correct decision. Kyler Murray's decision-making early in the season was very bad in the passing game. It's just he was such a dynamic athlete and runner of the football that he was able to make up for it. So here's an example. We're going to get double seams against a single high safety. You have a 2-on-1 here with the safety. Kyler Murray's job is to maneuver this safety to bite on one of the seams and hit the other one. It's a 2-on-1. Look him off, force him on one, and hit the other. And Kyler Murray was unable to do that. He initially looks right to the right seam, comes back to the left towards Dan Arnold, 85 baby. Safety does not bite on the initial look and then goes towards Kyler Murray's left where he's looking to Dan Arnold. This is a pretty easy read back to the right, and you have a huge play down the seam. This is a game, I'm pretty sure this is the 4th quarter of this Lions game. They're down like 3 points. This is a big play, and Cliff Kingsbury dials up the perfect concept to beat him. But Kyler Murray doesn't make the correct decision, takes a sack. So it's almost like, there's so many plays where Cliff Kingsbury, the play design isn't up to what it should be, in my opinion, because you're not looking to be average, especially with guys like Kyler Murray. You need a great play caller. And then the times where Cliff Kingsbury, you get the good play calls, and then Kyler Murray makes a mistake and doesn't convert. But then you have the plays where it finally works out. You get a good play call. Kyler Murray makes the right play. And then one of the receivers can't come up with a play. And it is just so frustrating. The inconsistencies of this offense, because they have the talent. They have the talent. Oh my God, it is just so frustrating to look at. So, the second major problem I have, I'll combine this into 2 major problems, is A, the receivers outside of DeAndre Hopkins are way too bad. They're way too inconsistent. They're not reliable. The outside of DeAndre Hopkins, their most reliable receiver was Larry Fitzgerald. And Larry Fitzgerald is well past his prime, and he cannot separate like he used to be able to. That is a major problem. Because if you double DeAndre Hopkins, or let's just say you have a top corner in the league and you're able to get a decent matchup with him one-on-one, what the hell is Kyler Murray supposed to do? How is he supposed to trust the offense and the play calls if he can't trust the guys he's throwing to? And it's not just the wide receivers, it's the tight ends. Listen, Dan Arnold, I got your jersey, I love you, but you just weren't necessarily reliable. The other receivers weren't reliable. The tight ends were not reliable. The running backs weren't reliable. We need someone else aside from DeAndre Hopkins and Kyler Murray's running ability that is consistent, that they can rely on, that can actually create consistent separation and be someone on third down that's like, hey, you're one-on-one. We need you to make a play. DeAndre Hopkins is doubled. They're sending a blitz so Kyler Murray can't juke out 8 people, and sometimes he even does. We need someone to rely on. Now, the other thing is that the Kyler-Cliff Kingsbury partnership, the relationship between play caller and quarterback, I feel like just isn't there. You see the top offenses in the league. The Bills, the Chiefs, the Saints. Whether they're top statistically or not, you really feel like in those crucial moments the big third downs and those crucial drives, the play caller and the quarterback, they're in sync. They're together. They know exactly what's going on. They know each other's strengths and weaknesses. It's almost like a marriage, right? And I really don't feel like I'm getting that marriage here with Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray from what I've seen on the film. It's all right, but this is a team, their ambition is not to be all right. 8-8 is all right. They were all right. This team has the talent of being a great team. And this relationship needs to improve if they want to be that great team, that great offense. So, let's just get into the positives, though. What are the positives of the Cardinals right now? Well, first off, things improved as the season went on last year. Maybe it was because it was a COVID year. Kyler Murray was still new to the offense relatively. But as the season went on, it improved. And not only did Kyler Murray improve, Cliff Kingsbury improved as well. So we're going to just look at how comfortable Kyler Murray looks in the pocket. I wish I had more time to show more clips because, it's almost night and day when you look at the first couple of weeks of the season towards the end of the season. Kyler Murray, it really felt like he was in the groove, in the zone. He was comfortable. He was just on the next level. Right? Until he got hurt. And then we're going to see Cliff Kingsbury improve with his adjustments in the games. So we're going to see a play. It's funny that I'm taking this hugely negative play and making a positive out of it, but I posted this thread on Twitter, and I really love this from Cliff Kingsbury and the offense. So the Dolphins love this cover zero look, where they're bringing an extra guy, and this is what they do, right? So it looks like, right, all 7 guys, or I believe it's 6 here, are rushing. But what they would do, and what Brian Flores would do, it's brilliant, is depending on who picks up the block and where the offensive line is sliding, the linebackers or defensive linemen would back out and cover the underneath slants and little crossers and whatnot if they wanted to get rid of the ball quick. So you're going to see here, offensive line is blocking to the right. There's an unblocked edge defender to the left. These 2 linebackers that are picked up by the center and the guard, the right guard, will back out to pick up crossers, which basically means the Dolphins were able to get free rushers by only rushing 4 guys. So they were almost in a base defense. It was definitely more aggressive with their D-backs, putting more pressure on them, but they were so good they were able to. So they were only rushing 4 guys and getting free rushers, and it gave teams a lot of fits, including the Cardinals early on in this game. I mean, look at it. You got a strip sack. This is the Cardinals' first or second possession of the game. But then, Cliff Kingsbury, and I love this adjustment, and I thought he got better at these types of adjustments as the season went on, and got better as a play caller, even as an NFL play caller. So what they're going to do, not only, we're getting the same look from the Dolphins, not only are they bringing in a tight end and a running back to chip the edge rushers, right? This is absolutely brilliant. What they're going to do is when the guard or center or whoever's guy backs out, they're going to pull around and get the unblocked guy or the chip defender, which gives Kyler Murray enough time to throw a post against a corner one-on-one to Christian Kirk, a good deep threat. And it ends up in a touchdown. This is a great change. This is a change from this offensive staff that directly resulted in points on the board. This is the kind of stuff that we need to see from Cliff Kingsbury and this Cardinals staff consistently next season. And I'm expecting to see consistently next season. Because if you're going to try and beat the Saints and the Chiefs and these great Hall of Fame level coaches and play callers, you got to be on their level. And I thought that Cliff Kingsbury, as the season went on, started to finally get there. It looked more like less of a college offense and more like an NFL offense with their adjustments and with their schemes and how they were taking advantage of matchups. Obviously, when Kyler Murray got hurt at the end of the season and was playing hurt, the offense was stagnant. But the other positives is a lot of their positions of need they've been improving on. They pick up Rodney Hudson from the Raiders, an all-pro level center, to help probably the major, if not one of the most major weaknesses on this offense, that interior offensive line. You add a all-pro level guy. You sign A.J. Green in free agency. You still got the draft and more free agency to go, right? So apparently, word on the street is they're looking to add a tight end, which would be huge because they lost my boy Dan Arnold. So a lot of the problems of this offense, they already have been improving. I would love to see them pick up a running back as well in the draft, one of those running backs that we just went over. And then the other thing, the other positive, is that their defense is great. This is a defense that is awesome, and it is very well coached. I really didn't have a whole lot of problems with their defense. I think the only problem with their defense is, what are they going to do with their secondary? So here's a play just to illustrate how much I loved watching this Cardinals defense with Vance Joseph. It was brilliant. They were primarily a man coverage team, but on these third downs and stuff, they would bring up some really creative looks. So what they're going to do here, they've been playing man coverage all game against the Niners, and they have this motion with Kittle where you have Devondre Campbell following him, which looks like man. But actually, it's going to be more like a trap coverage where you're going to have cover 2 on the bottom with Patrick Peterson looking to pick off anything underneath. A safety, Budda Baker over the top. Basically, one-on-one coverage up here with outside leverage, and this other safety getting anything in the middle. And it works to perfection. Absolute perfection, because they're going to look to hit a quick out on the right, and Patrick Peterson is ready, sitting on it. This could have been a pick. Could have been a pick 6. Beautiful, beautiful call from Vance Joseph. And this happened every game. This defense was really good, especially against the pass. There were a couple games where they were a little inconsistent, but for as many games as they were inconsistent, there were more games where they were elite. The only problem I really had with this defense, which, funny enough, has for the most part been solved with J.J. Watt, is that I felt like their D-ends or their D-tackles would sometimes get bullied, especially in double teams too much, and their linebackers weren't making enough plays, and they were almost relying on Budda Baker to kind of bail them out too much. So you're going to see here, this is Allen, one of their rotational D-ends. He just kind of, this is a tough play because you're getting doubled, but you just can't get moved this much, and these linebackers kind of just lose their gap integrity. And then you're relying on Budda Baker, who is, I think, the best safety in the NFL, by the way. This guy is absolutely insane. If you want to see, I put a little highlight video together on the 3rd and 20 Twitter of Budda Baker, if you're interested in some of the plays he made in this 49ers game. But now that you get J.J. Watt, Isaiah Simmons, who got better as the season progressed, should be much better this next year, right? Because I think the only weak spot with this team was their linebackers, and not that their linebackers were bad, I just felt they were inconsistent mainly against the pass. Isaiah Simmons, it's exactly what you drafted him for. The only real weakness you have now is, can we get the secondary back to what it was? Because if this defense is as good as it was last year, you're chilling. You just need the offense, and you're a playoff team. You're a scary team. If the defense is better than last year, this team is very scary. Because if the defense is better than last year, I think this has a legitimate chance of being a top 5 group in the league. Very, very talented team. So overall, I like where this Cardinals team is headed. Under Cliff Kingsbury, they've gotten better every season. You get Kyler Murray's 3rd year. I think we could really see him explode this year. Because we saw last season to start the year, his decision-making was shoddy, but he was able to make up for it with a couple of big plays with his arm down the field and some really fantastic runs with his running ability. If we're able to see him really put it together and be consistent, kind of like Josh Allen did this year, and so many other quarterbacks have done in their 3rd year in the league, whew, this team could be scary. Because I just need this offense to be a little bit more consistent. Give me a run game. Give me if AJ Green steps up as that second guy that's reliable, we already solved the issue. If not, we have probably the deepest receiver class in a long time. Not necessarily in terms of top-end talent, but of guys that can play. You have a myriad of pass rushers. This team's got pass rushers for days. And now you add J.J. Watt. Like, holy crap. I think Cardinals fans have the right to be excited. And a lot of pressure has to rely on Cliff Kingsbury. I need this relationship between Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray to be at the level it needs to be. I need Cliff Kingsbury to step up and be the great offensive coach that we hired him to be. And this team should be a playoff team. It really should be, even in a tough division. Because they have more than the talent. And the funny thing is, they have the top-end talent. They just need the role players. They just need the team and the coaching. That's really all they need. Because I'm expecting a lot of their younger studs, the Isaiah Simmons and the Kyler Murrays, to be more consistent. You know, you have the coaching staff hasn't really changed a whole lot. You're in the system. You get a whole another year under your belt. There shouldn't be as much complications with COVID. There really is no excuse for this team not to make the playoffs, aside from if they get very injured. So, with that being said, that's going to be it for the episode. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Just me going solo on this one. Steed should be back pretty soon. Oh, geez. I screwed this up. There we go. Steed should be back next week or the week after. And if not, I'm going to try and get someone to sub in so you don't have to listen to me too much. But if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. We are going way more active on the Twitter recently. So if you want to see some film stuff, like I posted a lot of clips from the Cardinals analysis, a lot of stuff from my running backs analysis. We're going to keep going on that. Be sure to follow us on Twitter. It's on the screen. If you're listening, it's at 3rd and 20 _. But thank you so much for watching, and peace out.